would so proudly we hailed, and the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fights. Oh, the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, just that star-spangled banner, yeah, wave o'er the land, unafraid, and the home of the brave.
Don't be afraid, this is a low fat, and you are listening to HonestAnswerRadio.com. Now, where is the egg roll you guys promised me?
The views and opinions expressed on the Honest Answer Radio show are the opinions of Honest Answer Media and no one else. If you're hearing a syndicated broadcast of this show, don't hold it against the broadcaster. Rather, congratulate them on their openness, tolerance, and respect for the First Amendment to the Constitution of the United States of America. Thank you very much.
We the people, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty. To ourselves and our posterity do ordain and establish this Constitution for the United States of America, for the United States of America.
Welcome one more time to Honest Answer Radio here on HonestAnswerRadio.com, where we're kicking the mainstream media in the teeth every chance we get. If this is your first time listening to us, I'm going to be the Marty half of your dynamic hosting duo this fine Tuesday evening.
And on the Tuesday evening edition of Honest Answer Radio, I will be the Casey half of the show. And man, you know, it was a nice, quiet weekend starting last Thursday night when we got off the air.
Yeah.
And, boy, did it just go all sideways.
Well, it heated up. I do want to say, before I get started, though, I won't be typing into the chat room tonight. I usually throw a comment here and there. I just can't do it tonight. I got one wing, and I'm having to hold the microphone in my hands to boot because my wireless microphone has given up the ghost. So don't think I'm ignoring y'all. I just ain't typing.
Yeah, and by the way, that's a mighty attractive sling. It is color coordinated with your shirt.
Yeah, and it brings out the turkey turd in brown in my eyes. So let's see here. I don't know where to start. I don't have a whole lot of audio tonight, but what I have is it's some good stuff.
One might call it big audio dynamite.
Yeah, I've got two clips from Ted Cruz about two totally separate issues. I have his opinion about Iran wanting to install an ambassador to the UN that was at one time one of the, terrorists, for lack of a better word.
Wait a minute. You're letting that feller off the hook. At one time, he was...
Okay,
look,
well, all right. Well, I meant at one time he was holding Americans hostage.
Yeah.
As a terrorist.
As a terrorist. Now, he's never given up. Nobody in Iran has ever actually given up their terrorist ways.
True.
So,
I've also got Teddy Boy talking about Obama's treatment of women. You know, the president today he brought out that pen. You know, he said he's got a pen and a phone. So today he brought out that pen, and he is going to make it more fair for women in the workplace, even though the White House still hadn't come up to date paying women the same as men. He's going to make sure everybody else does it, dadgummit.
right.
And I got Ted Cruz talking about that, which that's pretty cute. I have a rather heated exchange between Louis Gohmert and Eric Holder.
Yeah, that was boy,
That was finger pointing involved,
They was
man.
finger pointing. Louis Gohmert has gotten under Eric Holder's skin.
Oh yeah,
and
the thing is Gohmert hit the nail right on the head too. Y'all will hear it in a minute.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like Pilate here. I find no fault with that man, but boy, did it fire Eric Holder up. He said, "You don't want to go there, buddy." He called him buddy.
When you get there, you know that you've got him.
Oh yeah, he called him buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like pal. I don't think he meant it in a nice way though.
No, I'm pretty darn sure he wasn't being nice.
And last but not least, I've got Speaker of the House, John Boehner, giving his opinion on what's her name, Lois Lerner, and the whole IRS thing. He gets right to the point with that. When they ask him how's he feel,
yeah, he got right there to the point. Don't give
I ain't
that
gonna give
one
it away. I ain't gonna give it away.
Well, let's start out with some.
You want to go with Iranian ambassador?
Yeah, because see, this is interesting.
Oh, wait. I also have another story that I don't have audio for.
Right.
But I found this to be a very interesting story. There has been a case where there have been federal snipers training their rifles at a family for taking pictures.
Yeah, they weren't in the designated free speech zone, so let's
out in the middle of the plains.
Yeah,
or it's a butte. Is
well,
a butte different than a plain?
Yeah, there's some difference. You're talking about the Nevada rancher who has been fighting almost steadily with the federal government since
the
about
Bureau of Land Management in particular.
Since about 1998, maybe even earlier than that. And he's refusing to pay their grazing fees.
Extortion.
Because he says his family's been grazing cattle on that land since the 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
And he's claiming preemptive rights. He's also claiming that the sheriff of that county could come in and put a stop to the feds if he just had
if
some
he just
backbone.
wanted to, yeah.
It's a states' rights issue. It's an issue of the federal government at the point of a gun.
Yup.
Quite literally, trying to deny this man rights to graze cattle on BLM land.
Yep.
Which, basically BLM land is that kind of land where no private individual owns it, so the federal government just says, well, if y'all don't own it, we do.
Right, but it's public land.
Yeah, and people have been grazing their cattle on Bureau of Land Management land ever since there was such a thing, since before there was such a thing.
Yep.
And all this is over the protected, was it desert tortoise or
The desert
prairie
tortoise.
or something like that? Which, by the way, will eat cow poop
Yeah.
because there's protein in it and it's already partially digested. So,
But those cattle, are infringing on that prairie tortoise's habitat, and they're endangered, man. I mean, look, if the prairie tortoise goes away, should it, fall into extinction?
if the prairie tortoise or desert tortoise, whatever it is, if it falls into extinction, it won't be because of that man's cows.
But the entire ecosystem will be turned upside down in that area. There will be a massive black hole, and all of that prairie land there will be sucked into it. There'll be a great gnashing of teeth and wailing. Fire and brimstone will rain down from heaven. And the Bureau of Land Management, they're just trying to avoid all that.
They'll be the ones standing there on the sidelines going, "We told you so."
Save the Nevada prairie tortoise.
Yeah.
Or, ain't that like save the Texas prairie chicken?
And you know what, man? This farmer, this rancher, he might be hard to get along with. I don't know. Never met the man.
Could be. He sounds like he's a cantankerous old cuss.
He might be inflexible. The last time I checked, there was no law against being cantankerous.
No, but
there was
man,
no law against being stubborn.
They're saying that that the feds are worried that this is going to turn into another Ruby Ridge.
Well, you know who has the power
situation.
to stop it from being that way?
Well, the sheriff does, and the feds do.
Well, the feds. They can stop. They can stop trying to bring the full weight of the United States government down on one cattle rancher.
And his family. I mean,
yeah, because apparently, man, his son, I saw a photo of his son's face. His son got arrested for taking the pictures.
He shouldn't have been pointing that camera at things.
It was an assault.
Out of the. It was an assault camera. That's right.
Oh.
It shouldn't have been. Or he could have done that if he had just been in the First Amendment free speech zone that they had cordoned off there.
Yeah, see that whole thing right there. There's no such thing in the United States, folks. There's not a zone where you're allowed to speak your mind.
There is too. The Obama administration has dictated that. Look, man, the Obama signed.
Did he do that with his pen? Or
He
with
did,
his phone?
man. With his pen, he signed an executive order that said there will be, in certain cases, free speech zones where you can say whatever you want to and express yourself in a manner that you see fit, as long as you don't leave that designated area. It's like a smoking area, see?
But see, the thing is, Obama can sign whatever he wants to and write down whatever he wants to. But it doesn't change the inalienable right of freedom of speech. Our founding fathers, there's nowhere in the Constitution that there's no free speech zone outlined in the First Amendment.
That doesn't matter. Now, remember, we've talked about this time and time again. It's not a matter of what he can do.
Yeah, right. It's a matter of what will he do.
That's right. This administration has proven time and time again that they will take whatever action they deem necessary and deal with the consequences later. Because no matter what the Supreme Court would say about like this particular instance, no matter what, if the Supreme Court was to rule today that the feds are wrong and this man and his family can make whatever pictures they want, and they can let their cattle graze wherever they want. It will not erase the fact that the son has been arrested already. He's already had to go to jail.
Mm-hmm.
It won't take away the fact that the federal government has confiscated this man's, and I'm using their terminology, trespassing cattle.
Mm-hmm. Rounded them up and just took them.
I believe
You
the
know,
last
back
I
in
read
the
it was
Old West-
like 200 head of cattle that they've already stolen from this man.
Back in the Old West, that was a hanging offense.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. See, it won't erase any of that. Now, they're saying that they're contemplating auctioning this man's cattle off. The ones that they confiscate, like he don't get them back. No matter what. He won't get his cattle back. And no matter what the Supreme Court says about this, it will not erase any of those things that's happened. They will have already made their point. If you cross us,
We will get you.
we'll get you.
But see, this goes back, again, this goes back way before Obama came into office.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's been dealing with this, I think, since
Bill Clinton.
1993, I believe, is when all of this started.
George Bush did not stop it either.
No.
This isn't just one president, one administration that we're talking about here. This is the federal government,
Mhm.
period.
Yep. It's not a Republican
tell
or
me
Democrat
again.
issue, but
Tell me again.
now wait. This whole while it has spanned multiple administrations, no action has been taken. No cattle had been confiscated. No arrests had been made until the Obama administration.
So, explain to me again how government has the power to do good.
Yeah, I don't know. But I think this is a story that it's one
we're
of those
keep- we're
that you
keeping
better
our
pay
eyes
attention to it now,
Yeah.
because I have a feeling we will be seeing
Well,
this
if it's
again.
not this guy, it could be me or you or anybody else out there.
Look, the EP. This also, the other agency involved here is the EPA, because they're the ones that that decide, what animals are, or what life forms are important to what ecosystems, and they're the ones ultimately that put these restrictions on this land. It falls onto the Bureau of Land Management because, that's what, they're into the whole land management. But it is ultimately the EPA. It is the enviro nuts.
Mm-hmm.
The people who feel that in most instances, animal life trumps human life.
Yeah, it's the EPA.
Or
Yet
which
another-
animal life trumps another animal life?
So
because,
explain-
this is cattle grazing. It's their land, their ecosystem too, right?
So again, I'm going to ask, how is the federal government doing a good thing in this situation?
Yeah, I can answer that. They're not.
So we should probably move on. But folks, we're not dropping this.
Oh, no,
We're going to keep our eyes on it, and we will report back.
Yeah. Now, we can move on to terrorist.
You're going to play this clip from Ted Cruz.
Right.
This is important because, not just because Ted Cruz took a stand in the Senate and said, no, I don't want to give this terrorist a visa. This is important because this is a bipartisan bill.
That's right.
Ted Cruz is speaking on the behalf not only of Republicans in the Senate, but of Democrats. And I don't know if you got the whole clip, Did you record the whole thing all the way to the end?
Well, the clip I've got is not him on the Senate floor.
Oh, okay. Well, see, on the clip of him on the Senate floor, he asked that this, if there are no objections, let this bill pass. And he asked the President of the Senate, Mr. President, do your thing. The President of the Senate says, any objections?
There were none.
There's no objections. So
he was joined by Chucky Schumer on this one, man.
He actually, Chuck Schumer took a stand on this one too.
Who has not been all that supportive of anything else that Ted Cruz has put out there.
But this is a bipartisan group in the Senate saying, this is not cool. You're not going to slap the United States in the face this way.
Right. Well, let me play this clip real quick. If I can get it rewound here. Let's see here. Okay.
You've introduced legislation, the Washington Post says is likely to pass. It would prevent known terrorists from obtaining visas to enter the United States. It's specifically targeted at Iran's nominee to be United Nations ambassador, who was involved in the hostage crisis and taking hostages in Tehran in 1979, 1980. It looks like it's going to pass, but I guess to play devil's advocate here, obviously I don't like this gentleman or what he did, but to play devil's advocate, isn't the whole point of the UN that countries get to send people who they want to send? Ahmadinejad, Fidel Castro, Yasser Arafat, all these people were allowed to go and address the UN. Hugo Chavez.
Not without limit. The people you named are heads of state. In this instance, Iran has named Hamid Abudulabi to be their UN ambassador. And he is a known terrorist. He participated in holding Americans hostage for 444 days. Now listen, their naming him was a deliberate slap in the face. It was intended to be contemptuous to America. And right now the statute for denying a visa says that for a UN ambassador, you can deny a visa if they have committed espionage and pose a national security threat. Now the problem with this individual, although he clearly poses a national security threat as an acknowledged terrorist, there's no evidence he committed espionage. What the legislation I've introduced does is change the word "and" to "or," which means it would give the administration the authority to deny him a visa. Under the existing statute, if the Taliban in Afghanistan had nominated Osama bin Laden to be its ambassador in the UN, the existing statute would say we'd have to let him in, give him a visa, and let him move to Manhattan. Now, that's obviously absurd. And I will say I'm encouraged. It hasn't passed yet, but the indications are we're getting bipartisan cooperation. Senator Chuck Schumer, Senator Pat Leahy, Senator Bob Menendez, all Democrats have been working with us, and I am hopeful, I'm optimistic. We're going to see the Senate act in a bipartisan manner to protect our national security, which is exactly how we should act on matters dealing with the critical safety of this country.
It did pass, by the way. Like we were saying earlier, this interview was done, before it actually went on the Senate floor. But that bill did pass overwhelmingly. And he's right. Under the former existing statute, they would have these people could have nominated. Like he said, the Taliban could have nominated. Osama bin Laden, and they would have had to. Well, okay. And this changing of the wording was important. And this guy that Iran has put forth there, there's no way you could convince me or any other right-thinking person that this was not a thumbing of their nose at us.
Well, everybody seems to. I don't know if Samantha Power, our ambassador to the UN, I don't know if she would acknowledge the slap in the face because she's cuckoo.
True.
But anybody else with half a brain will, can understand that it's Iran thumbing its nose at us.
And just because, the UN happens to be located in New York City, I don't think that we should be obligated to let, anyone that a foreign country decides to send over here as an ambassador. I don't think we should be
Arafat
obligated.
Should never have been allowed to set foot on U.S. soil.
And I got to say, how I feel about Ted Cruz, but I got to say, him referring to Yasser Arafat as a head of state.
Yeah,
that's kind of a stretch.
Kind of offended,
That's kind of a stretch in my mind because last time I checked, Palestine isn't really a place.
It depends on who you talk to, but to
it doesn't
anybody
have a defined.
To anybody who knows history, it's not.
I mean, it doesn't necessarily have a defined border. It doesn't have a capital. They don't necessarily. Well, like I say, I guess it depends on who you ask, and I could probably be blown to smithereens for even suggesting.
There's plenty of left wingers out there and Israel haters who will tell you how wrong you are. Of course, they're all wrong.
Yeah, they are. But
So-
anyway, I take my hat off to not just to Senator Cruz, but to the Democrats
To Chuck Schumer and Bob Menendez
that
and
have
Patrick
joined in on
Leahy,
this. Yeah,
thank you for not being, willing to see the United States slapped in the face like that.
every once in a while, we can actually come together on something that's pretty darned important and actually get something accomplished there in the Senate. I don't mind telling you, man, I was just a little bit surprised.
I was quite surprised.
It met with the support that it got. I mean, the Senate in the state that it's in, and particularly some of these senators like Chuck Schumer, they're not exactly known for doing the right things for the right reasons.
Well, boy, you said a mouthful
And,
there.
There are some of the Democrats in the Senate, I wouldn't call them Israel haters per se, but they're not exactly, friendly to Israel.
Well, I tell you what, now that you brought up this whole Democrat-Republican issue, I know this wasn't on our agenda, but I did blog about it today. Just want to make a quick note that, we do slam Democrats pretty hard on the show, far more regularly than we do Republicans. But right now, what's his name? McAllister? Vance? Is it Vance?
I believe. I don't know.
McAllister.
From Louisiana.
Who's a representative. He got caught on film smooching with one of his staffers. Back in the video dates back to December.
And he is married.
And so is she.
And so is she.
So.
And he is a Republican.
If this were a Democrat caught doing the same thing, Marty and I would be all over that story.
Mm-hmm. Look, it's not uncommon for people that we elect to engage in illicit affairs and things like that. It's not. Unfortunately, it's all too common once they get into the halls of Congress. But in this instance, not only, all right, as a Republican, he should know that his every move is going to be heavily scrutinized right off the bat. But that's not the worst of it. Go ahead.
No, the worst of it is he ran on his conservative Christian principles.
That second one there is the one that really puts the foul taste in people's mouth.
He used his Christianity to achieve political office. And turned right, and this was in November, the election, where the special election for him was in November. All right. And in December, he's smooching a woman who is not his wife. And this wasn't a friendly little peck on the cheek here.
Oh, he was macking.
All right. As a voter, there's an offense because he won't be faithful to his wife. He won't keep his hands or his lips off of his own staff.
Right.
Which that's a workplace no-no, just period, which means, again, Republican, Democrat, doesn't matter. That's wrong.
Wrong is wrong, dude.
But
if you're going to stand on your
Christian,
Christian laurels and use them to get yourself put into office, the least you can do is keep your lips and hands to yourself.
As a Christian, I'm very offended because he used his religion to boost his way into public office. He used my religion and yours to get himself into office.
Particularly in a time when we get enough bad press, man.
That's right. And so this reflects bad on me and Marty and everybody else.
I can't tell you how many comments I've read, under this story in the different places that I've seen it. I can't tell you how many comments I saw that said this is just typical, hypocritical, and putting Christian in quotation, behavior.
And this is not typical.
No.
I would just like to point out that I've already forgiven this man.
Well, it's not for me to forgive.
Well, as far as the offense
It's between him, God, and his wife, as far as I'm concerned.
The offense to me, as a fellow Christian, I've forgiven him. That part's easy. Now, would you trust him again, Marty?
Well, when you forgiveness doesn't mean that you have to let them do it over and over again.
Yeah, there's a trust issue that has been breached right here. Now, I believe in redemption.
Sure.
Okay? But when it comes to people and them saying they're sorry, he's issued an apology to his constituents and to the other fellow Christians and to his wife and all that. I'm sure he's sorry he got caught.
Yeah.
But it's going to take years before I believe that the man is sorry that he did wrong. And I'm sorry, that matters.
Well, of course it matters. Of course it does. Like I said, as far as I'm concerned, I don't owe him any forgiveness on my end because, quite frankly, that's between him, God, his wife, and his constituents. But, were I a Louisiana voter in his district, the forgiveness, that's like you said, that's easy. That's the easy part, for me. Mm-hmm. But you don't have to, forgiveness doesn't mean, okay, I forgive you, now do this, I'm going to give you an immediate chance to do this to me again. Even though I'm a firm believer in redemption, you can't call yourself a Christian and not believe in redemption.
Right.
Because you have to get it yourself, or you receive redemption yourself when you become a Christian. But, even God may not put you back in that same place. If I remember right, remember Moses? Remember that guy? Mm-hmm. He didn't exactly get to...
He didn't get to cross
over into the promised land. But he was forgiven, So as far as this guy goes, I don't think he deserves to be put back in office again. I don't think there's anything he could do to...
If I was in his district, I would start looking around for somebody who I would suspect would be more honorable.
Yeah. And it's just bonehead, man. Look, if you're going to be so boneheaded that you're going to do something like this, and knowing the magnifying glass you're going to be under. It's not, for me, it ain't even about so much that he violated Christian ethics or even the ethics of his office. This is just sheer stupidity.
He did it
man.
right in front of the security cameras.
Look, as a Republican, you're under the gun. In this particular time in our history, you're under the gun as it is. If you are a Christian, you are under the gun. If you call yourself a conservative, there's that magnifying glass there watching every move you make. And if you're in office as claiming any of those three things, Christian, conservative, or Republican, you've got to know you're going to be watched. And that anything you do, any way you step out of line, somebody is going to catch it. There is no getting away with anything as one of those three things. You just can't do it, man. We all mess up. We all do wrong. But if you're going to ask people to elect you to office, you got to know that you can't do something as boneheadedly stupid as that.
My advice to anybody who's thinking of running for office that is a Christian, that is, I don't care what party they're in, I would do my level best to make sure that I had a strong marriage.
Well,
and because when you have a strong marriage, I mean, anybody can yield to temptation. Temptation can be powerful.
Oh, yeah.
But my advice would be do everything that you can do to avoid the temptations to step outside the bonds of your marriage. And the best way to do that is to make sure that your marriage is strong before you start running for office. Because if it's not, look, good-looking staffers are a dime a dozen, man.
Well,
I mean,
see what you ought to do. All of them should have a spouse like mine. If this fella had married a woman like I did, they wouldn't even be worried about the morality of it all.
No,
and
they'd be
having
worried
a strong
about
marriage.
They'd be worried about their own survival.
Yeah, there's life and death situations involved here. I mean, I know that if it was me, my constituents would be the least of my worries. No. Surviving an election? Please. Surviving the ride home would be what I would be worried about.
Yeah.
So. But anyway, we've still got a few more things we need to touch on.
We do.
Sorry, but let it never be.
Sorry for that little rabbit, but
let it never be said we ain't fair.
That's right.
Okay. Speaking of fair, and while we, got some Ted Cruz that we're talking about, and executive orders, today, our illustrious potentate, President Obama,
King Barry,
brought out his mighty pen and signed an executive order to level, this is what he says, level the playing field, that this is not about myths, it's about math. That's what the president said a while ago, just a few minutes ago. I heard him. He is...
But now, this is Common Core math, I think.
Yeah. Ever since Obama's been running for office, there has been a whole lot of talk about the Republican war on women and how unfair Republicans are to women. And one of the first things that the president did when he was elected was he signed that bill.
Lilly Ledbetter,
thank you. The Lilly Ledbetter Act, to supposedly guarantee, equal pay for men and women, right? Mm-hmm. And this executive order, part of what it does is make it illegal for employers to punish employees for discussing their wages.
Right.
You know, I've worked at places, and Casey's worked at places where you were not allowed to discuss with your fellow employees what you made.
Right.
And if you did, you could be fired for that. Well, no more, thanks to this executive order. And the president's making a big to-do, you know, to make it appear that he and his fellow Democrats are doing their part in this war on women that the Republicans have engaged in to level the playing field so that women can be assured that they're going to have a better chance of making the same amount of money as their male counterparts, you know, doing the same jobs, see?
Right. So what does old Ted Cruz have to say about that?
Well, he's pretty much saying the same thing we are. Huh? Excuse me? Because, correct me if I'm wrong, but CNN just put a report out, I think it was like last week, wasn't it? Where it was shown that in the Obama White House, female staffers make, I believe it was 88 cents
On the dollar.
on the dollar compared to the females make 88 cents to the dollar compared to their male counterparts.
Right.
Which means that the Obama White House is not living up to their own orders, I guess you could say. I know, ain't that shocking? Ain't that shocking? But Cruz is going to make a good point here in a minute. Everything is not what it seems, as if, you know, we haven't learned that by now with the Obama camp. But this is what he had to say about this.
Putting aside whether there really is a gender gap, for now, let's just connect these dots. Fair pay for women, overtime pay for all, a hike in the minimum wage, help for kids paying off student loans. You see a pattern here? Well, Republican Senator Ted Cruz sure does. And he doesn't like what the president's really up to here. Senator, very good to have you. Even Charles is charged about that. But Senator, what do you make of this, and why does it concern you?
Well, Neil, it's great to be with you. Unfortunately, President Obama and the Senate Democrats, they're just engaged in all politics all the time. They held a press conference a few weeks ago where they talked about their agenda for the rest of the year are a bunch of political show votes that they know are not going to accomplish anything, but they think they poll well and will help them at the polls. The reality are, women are hurting, and they're hurting under President Obama's economic agenda. Under President Obama, 3.7 million women have moved into poverty. Under President Obama, the median income for women has dropped over $700. The Obama economy is a disaster, and the people who are hurt the most are the most vulnerable among us. They're young people, they're Hispanics, they're African Americans, they're single moms, and all of smoke and mirrors at the White House is designed to distract from the failures of the Obama economy and the people who are hurting, and no one is being hurt more than women by the Obama economy.
Senator, do you think that the Democrats, though, are tempting you and tempting Republicans to go ahead and vote against these various measures that, as you pointed out, sir, do at least test well in these polls, and that they wanted on record that Republicans were against hiking the minimum wage, against making things fair for women, and all these things that you can question the math, but you know the strategy. What do you say?
Well, it's not even tempting. They're very explicit. They've written these bills because they know that they won't pass, and they're doing it just to score political points. They've got great names. You stick a wonderful name on a bill, but this has nothing to do with equal pay for equal work. That's been the law for decades. And listen, as someone who is married to a strong professional woman, as the father of 2 daughters, I'm very concerned about ensuring that women are protected in the workplace and treated fairly.
Do you think they are, Senator, right now? Do you think they are?
Oh, we have a long way to go. I think women face a very difficult circumstance in the workplace. I've certainly seen that. I've been blessed to work with a lot of strong women. But the answer is not to pass a trial lawyer bonanza. This has nothing to do with actually improving the situation of women in the workplace. This has everything to do with a political show vote for the Democrats and paying off the trial lawyers who are among the biggest funders of the Democratic Party. And they're using women to hide what they're really trying to do.
Senator,
that last sentence there, I think that's the most important thing that I take away from it. The Obama administration does not care about fairness for women or equal pay for women.
If he did, he would have improved the economic situation overall.
Right.
He would have cut taxes.
He's
He would have done
using women, just like he uses the Latino population in this country. He has used the African American population in this country. He plays on all of these, different minorities.
No matter what some of our friends may say, he has used the gay and lesbian and transgender
You better believe
community.
Because, Senator Obama was all for traditional marriage.
Right.
That marriage was between a man and a woman. As Senator Obama, and really the first half of his presidency as President Obama, marriage, the definition of marriage was a man and a woman. But when he figured out he could...
When Obamacare started tanking in the polls... And...
had to get some support from somewhere, man.
And Syria, he was, dropping the ball on Syria and Iran. All of a sudden, gay people became important to him.
And see, what gets me is the amount of people that are being used and don't see it. Or, I don't know if it's that they don't see it, or they're refusing to see it. They don't want to believe that they're being used. They want so badly to believe that someone is taking up their cause that they won't even see what is going on right in front of their faces. I mean, the fact that the Obama White House won't pay women the same thing that they're paying men should by all rights speak volumes to the female voters in this country. But when he signs these bills like that Lilly Ledbetter Act and this executive order that he signed today, see, Obama and the Democrats, they're the only ones trying to do anything for us.
The thing is, though, he hasn't fooled all the women in the country. He has, because all women are not that stupid. No matter what he would have you believe, no matter what the rest of the Democrats would have you believe, there are plenty of women out there, plenty of single moms, plenty of these women in the workforce who know about the unequal pay that are not fooled. But he still makes these things because it's just like Ted Cruz says. Whatever they say they're doing, it has nothing to do with reality.
Right.
He used the word payoff.
Yup.
A word that keeps coming up under the Obama administration. Paying off his green energy buddies who funded his campaign.
The trial lawyer
Paying off,
Cruz was referring to.
Payoffs to unions. Payoffs to the trial lawyers.
Yep.
This is a sop to the trial lawyers who are going to make bank.
Big bank.
Off of lawsuits. So, because they will have an executive order.
That's right.
To drag into the courtroom.
But there's going to be so many that are not going to see this for the political grandstanding and payola that it really is.
Yeah, most of them work for MSNBC.
I was going to say, and it's going to be the mainstream press that is going to make the most of this.
Right.
And use it, to the advantage of the Democrats. Particularly in this election cycle that we've got right now.
Instead of calling it red meat for them, let's call it fried tofu.
Fried tofu.
Yeah, because, conservatives, we're the ones that eat unhealthy and hate the environment and all that. So, the left always talks about, it's red meat for the conservative base. Well, this is the fried tofu for the left.
All right. Well, look, man, we've got 2 more bits of audio that I got to get to, and we only got about 10 minutes or so by the clock, which, we're probably going to go over anyway, but oh well. The last 2 pieces I've got here, I've got to play this Louis Goldmere and Eric Holder exchange just for the comic value that it brings to the table. Holder was he was actually being questioned today about the way that his prosecutorial discretion, and for the most part it was involving the fact that the Holder's office they're not prosecuting anyone in Colorado and these states that have, for the most part, legalized marijuana.
Right.
There are certain mandatory minimums and things like that for, however much weight you get caught with and the type of drug you get caught with and things like that. And as far as marijuana goes, Holder he's just, he said, I'm not going to prosecute it. I'm going to leave this up to the states as long as they put the right statutes in place and things like that. But the real meat of these conversations was the prosecutorial discretion and how it's not just reaching out to this marijuana thing. Like, Goldmere is talking to him like he's going all the way back to Fast and Furious.
Right.
And he's wanting to know, how come, we've already held you in contempt for not coming across with the documents that we've asked you for, and you have had no problem giving these documents to terrorists and to the terrorist lawyers, but for some reason or another, you don't want to give it up to Congress.
Which is another way of saying you won't cough it up to the people.
Right.
So let's just let this little exchange play out.
All right.
It's fantastic.
Could we please get the documents that have been put on disc that of the 9,600 summaries of transcripts and the documents that were produced to the terrorists, and not some link, but documents that you made available, or your department made available to the terrorists? I renew my request.
Well, I think what we promised to do is to provide you and your staff with...
Sir, I've read you what your department promised, and it is inadequate, and I realize that contempt is not a big deal to our Attorney General, but it is important that we have proper oversight. So,
you don't want to go there, okay?
I don't want to go there?
No.
About the contempt?
You should not assume that that is not a big deal to me. I think that it was inappropriate. I think it was unjust. But never think that that was not a big deal to me. Don't ever think that.
Well, I'm just looking for evidence, and normally we're known by our fruits, and there have been no indications that it was a big deal because your department has still not been forthcoming in producing the documents that were the subject of the contempt. Well, let me move on. There have been other questions asked about
the documents that we were prepared to make available then, we're prepared to make available now, that would have obviated the whole need. This was all about the gun lobby and a desire to have a...
So we've been trying to get to the bottom of Fast and Furious, where people died, where at least a couple hundred Mexicans died, and we can't get the information to get to the bottom of that. So I don't need lectures from you about contempt.
And I don't need lectures from you either.
Because it is very difficult to deal with asking questions. As a former judge, I'd never have asked questions of someone who's been held in contempt. We waited till the contempt was purged, and then we asked questions.
See, Holder, he is, I agree with him. The contempt was a big deal for him, and you can tell he's still angry about it.
Well, he can't believe that they would have the audacity to make that move.
This is about accountability to the people, not When Congress asks you for a document, you don't get to say, well, I don't think you need that.
Right.
That's not how it works. When a judge issues a subpoena for documents in a court case, you don't get to go to the judge and say, well, you don't need that to make your decision, so I'm not going to give that to you. That's not how it works. When the documents are subpoenaed, you cough up the documents. This has everything to do with Eric Holder being determined to not be accountable to the people of the United States. He's going to do what he wants to do.
That's right.
No matter what the law is. Law means nothing to Eric Holder.
Him saying, I don't need to be lectured by you about contempt. Apparently, Attorney General Holder needs to be lectured by someone about exactly who it is that he works
on the
for.
People of Texas.
He doesn't work for President Obama. President Obama is not his employer. We, the people of the United States, are his employer. He is most definitely answerable to us, whether he likes it or not. And, he's not the only one dealing with contempt. I hold a lot of contempt for Eric Holder myself.
His refusal to be accountable for his actions to the directly elected representatives of the people. He just spat on everybody in Texas that voted for Louis Gohmert.
Yeah.
Or actually, he just spat on everybody in Louis Gohmert's district,
Mm-hmm.
whether they voted for him or not, because he just said, essentially,
I don't have to answer to y'all.
I don't have to answer to y'all. Y'all are nothing. Your thoughts, your opinions, your feelings about what I'm doing, your belief in the legality of what Eric Holder does, it doesn't matter to him.
I mean, you can almost hear him in his head going, look, I'm the Attorney General. I'm the Attorney General. I'll do what I want. You can't tell me when to give you documents. You can't tell me what documents that I'm supposed to provide to you. I'm the Attorney General. I'll decide what documents and when to give them to you. It doesn't matter what the people want.
But he knows he's never going to be held accountable. His
Well,
boss
at
isn't
least
going to fire
he's
him.
not going to be held accountable as long as we have a Democrat majority Senate and President Obama in the White House. He very well could be held accountable for all of this after, should we get the Democrat majority of the Senate out and President Obama out of the White House. The statute of limitations will not be over for all of his,
this
crimes.
is why he has not been charged. And everybody who say, well, impeach him. Not as long as the President of the United States holds the power to pardon him.
That's right.
No, there is a good reason. That's just why you don't hear me and Marty go up here going, impeach Eric Holder, impeach Eric Holder. No, not yet.
No.
Not
as
yet.
long as he can be pardoned. I do not want him
right.
impeached. And, there's nothing saying that, a Republican president wouldn't pardon him either. But, dadgummit, I do want him to have to go through the process. I do want him to be held accountable by someone at some time as one of those we the people.
Exactly.
Because, it's not Congress so much that he is in contempt of.
No, it's the people.
It's the people of the United States.
Because you and I, look, I've never met Louis Gohmert. Now, I think he's a pretty good guy. But I don't know him. I don't owe him.
Well, there needs to be an example made for future attorney generals.
Exactly.
To see that, okay, you may get away with it for a time and a season, but you will be held accountable at some point. And, I really, really believe that once Obama is out of the White House, should we get, rid of the Democrat majorities, that there will be some action taken against not just Eric Holder, but a lot of people. And one that we're about to talk about, Miss Lois Lerner, for example.
Oh.
And not just her at the IRS, but quite a few people at the IRS.
Some of the D.C. lawyers who've been sitting on those applications.
That's right. The IRS has more or less used the Freedom of Information Act for toilet paper these past, since 2008. This was going to be the most transparent administration, but there have been fewer acknowledgments of the Freedom of Information Act under this administration than any. I mean, my goodness, man, George Bush's administration didn't drag their feet with Freedom of Information Act as much as this administration
and
does.
That's saying something.
That is saying something, because he was pretty, close to the vest himself.
They was known for slow walking that stuff.
But, this administration could care less, and like the IRS, knowing that they've got Obama as a shield, there are no consequences. They were asking John Boehner about, Lois Lerner. They're supposed to be voting tomorrow about what they're going to do, regarding Lois Lerner. They're going to go into executive session about this. And they have to go into executive session, a closed session,
right,
because there are going to be specific taxpayer information being discussed,
right,
and you can't do that out in the open, because somebody's got to keep it private. Because obviously Lois Lerner didn't think she needed to.
Right.
But just listen to this little Boehner. Wow, I got to say, I don't agree with old John Boy on very much, but I agree with this sentiment wholeheartedly.
Breaking tonight, one of the most powerful committees in the House now pushing for the Justice Department to begin a criminal case against a top IRS official. GOP lawmakers preparing to accuse Lois Lerner of misleading investigators and releasing private taxpayer information. This as another House committee gets ready to vote to hold Ms. Lerner in contempt of Congress for her failure to comply with various subpoenas. Now, in an exclusive interview, Republican Speaker John Boehner joins me live. Mr. Speaker, great to see you.
Megan, good to be with you.
So, Lois Lerner facing contempt charges this week, in addition to a push to have the DOJ start a criminal case against her for what?
Misleading the Congress. When this story first broke, I asked the question, or someone asked me the question, well, who should be fired? I said, well, I don't care who's going to be fired. I want to know who's going to jail. And the fact is that the IRS, there are specific laws that protect taxpayers and force the IRS to comply with the law. Somebody at the IRS violated the law. Whether it's Lois Lerner or not, we'll find out. But the Ways and Means Committee and the Government Reform and Oversight Committee, both committees have jurisdiction over this IRS investigation. They've been both working together. And as I understand it, the Ways and Means Committee will go into executive session on Wednesday, where they will go over this letter that they've put together, outline names of taxpayers who've been harmed and aggrieved, and lay out a case for how Ms. Lerner misled the committee.
Is it just...
I'm with Boehner on this one. I ain't worried about who's going to be fired either. I want to know who's going to jail myself.
That's right.
Somebody needs to go to jail over this. I got to say, I kind of hope Lois Lerner is one of them.
Releasing taxpayer information is a felony crime.
That's right.
It's not a misdemeanor. It is a felony crime.
Well, not just Lois Lerner, but those other than Lois Lerner as well, who did this.
Yep.
Without any regard for the law. They need to be held accountable for this, just like with Eric Holder. For future employees and civil servants, people or people that work for the IRS. The IRS needs to see that even they are accountable to someone. That they can't just break the law all willy-nilly and not have to pay a price for it. Someone needs to be punished. But this is another one of those cases, though, for me, that I kind of don't want to see it end, the prosecution of it end, until President Obama is out of office. Because
Right.
this is another one of those cases where he would pardon.
Yes.
No matter what they did to Lois Lerner, he would pardon her for this. And that would send entirely the wrong message to the IRS. Do what you want, the president will pardon you. No, someone has got to pay for these crimes. Look, there have been so many crimes committed during this administration. More so, I mean, this administration's amount of crimes and felonies that have been committed make Watergate look like a traffic ticket.
You're not kidding. And the fact that the mainstream media has been silent
Yep.
about all of
No,
it.
they've been worse than silent, Casey.
Yeah, no, you're right. They've covered up.
They've covered it up. They've made excuses for it. They've outright lied. They make Benghazi out to be some made-up hokum. I was watching The Five this afternoon, and Bob Beckel went apoplectic when they were talking about this, saying that, Darrell Issa has just made this up out of whole cloth. There's nothing there.
Right.
He's saying there's not one single shred of evidence to prove that anything has been done wrong at the IRS. You know why there's not a shred of evidence?
Because the IRS and the Justice Department aren't coughing any of it up.
That's right. They will not let go of any of it. And it wouldn't surprise me if there weren't already people Ollie North in this situation destroying some of this evidence and destroying these documents so that there won't be any evidence of it. This is some serious stuff here, and the mainstream press is doing worse than being silent, man. They're helping. They're helping the IRS cover this up. They're helping the president cover this up. They're covering for them. They are intentionally misleading the American people about crimes being committed against the American people. This isn't like, a pickpocketing case where this is one person committing a crime against another single person.
No.
These are crimes being committed against the entire nation. Not just the few taxpayers that had their information leaked. It's beyond them. But I mean, granted, it was to them individually. But if it could happen to them, it could happen to any of us, all of us. These crimes are against the American people
no
as
matter
a
what
whole,
the
man.
political party, because once the precedent has been set that you can do these things and get away with it, you think the next administration, the next political party won't do it to you? You got another thing coming, folks.
If for by some miracle we get a Republican in the White House and a Republican majority in both houses of Congress, and they do this same stuff to progressives, do you not think the Democrats would be calling for somebody's head to roll?
They did when Nixon did it.
Yeah. And you don't think the mainstream press wasn't all over Nixon like a cheap suit?
And Nixon never did anything anything like what Eric Holder has done.
Dude, it's
or
not
what
even
Lois Lerner
close.
has done.
And his attorney general did time.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, did time right down here in the lovely state of Alabama, down in Montgomery.
Sure
Maxwell Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
Well, all right, man. We are at the end of the rainbow yet
maybe
again.
a little past it.
Just a wee. Don't forget, there's a little yellow donate button down there at the bottom of the player on honestanswerradio.com. If you like Honest Answer and you want to keep some of these honest answers coming to you, give to your heart's content. Or you can go over there to our sponsors page and, make use of some of these.
MyFreedomSmokes.com, V2Cigs.com, BaconFreak.com, Jelly Belly, Cabela's,
LifeLock,
MyFoodStorage.com,
VaporsSouth.com.
Yes, please go to Vapors South. If you do use the electronic cigarette, go to VaporsSouth.com. Marty makes flavors up right here.
And they are the bomb diggity dog, man.
American made, family owned. Come on, folks.
Also, man, go over there to our channels page. We got some other programming on this site.
Major League Baseball has kicked off. You done missed the Final Four. Don't miss out on this baseball season. Go
NBA playoffs start this month.
That's right. Get over to Sports World Radio and listen to Jeff and Sean. They do the fastest hour of sports on the internet.
Also, man, we cannot forget about one of my favorite programs that this show, that this website has, Challenge from the Heart. Pastor Rick Hope. Man, look, if there was ever a time that this country needs Jesus, it is right now. If you don't know Jesus Christ, let Pastor Rick introduce you. It's the one decision you could make that you will never, ever regret. It is the single most important thing you can do. But if you know what, if you already know Jesus,
that's an even better reason, Marty, to go and listen to Challenge from the Heart, because Rick will challenge you.
That's right. And, we Christians, we need to challenge each other on a daily basis. We have a lot of bad press as Christians, and we did it to ourselves. We don't challenge each other enough to do the right things and to stay in the Word. Our family, Casey's and my family, are starting a Bible study right now. And this is the first time in my entire life that we as a family are doing a Bible study together as a family. It took 40-some-odd years for this to happen. And this is the happiest time of my life. I was jubilant last night when we started it, just for the simple
We're
reason
going to
that
be reading the same book of the Bible, studying the same verses and answering the same questions at the same time.
As a family.
As a family.
And,
it's going, nothing but good can come out of this.
Dude, I'm so happy. And let me tell you something. You really want Pastor Rick to be a part of your family.
Amen.
The Bible studies that Pastor Rick brings to you with Challenge from the Heart, they will challenge you, man. Whether you're a Christian or not, they can bring you to a better life. Do not put this stuff off another day, man. Not one more day. Get your souls right now. We don't know how much time we got, man. We really don't. It could all end tomorrow. Or your world could end tomorrow.
Don't put the decisions off.
Also want to mention another good friend of ours, GoingBeyondRadio.com. They're on virtually every internet radio platform out there. And they're another good place that you can catch Honest Answer Radio, but not just us.
No. They got all kinds of other programming over there, man. They got spiritual shows. They've got tech shows. They've got money shows.
Love their paranormal shows.
All of it is out there.
If you into ghost to seas and things like that, woo!
GoingBeyondRadio.com. They're on Live 365, Shoutcast, iTunes, Roku, Blueberry, Tuned In.
Boy, you did that pretty good.
I mean...
And many more.
And, so if you've got a mobile phone, you can catch Honest Answer through GoingBeyondRadio.com.
Also, whoopsie. Lord, I'm just hitting all kind of crazy buttons here, man. It's hard to do this with only one chicken wing here. But as I do, at the end of every show, there is, one more thing I would like to leave you with, and it's really simple. We can solve a lot of our problems with this one little tidbit.
That's right.
If my people, who are called by my name, will humble themselves and pray and seek my face and turn from their wicked ways, then I will hear from heaven, and I will forgive their sins, and I will heal their land. We'll see you guys on Thursday.
Good night,
Please be good to each other just for a little while. Good night.